I'm Snoop Dogg, and I'm giving up smoke. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. But I'm done with it. I'm done with the coughing and my clothes smelling all funky. I'm going smokeless. Solo stove, fixed fire. They took out the smoke. Now you can have a nice blaze without any clouds ruining your day. Go smokeless. Go to solostove.com. Tell them Big Snoop Dogg sent you. I'm Snoop Dogg, and I'm giving up smoke. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. But I'm done with it. I'm done with the coughing and my clothes smelling all funky. I'm going smokeless. Solo stove, fixed fire. They took out the smoke. Now you can have a nice blaze without any clouds ruining your day. Go smokeless. Go to solostove.com. Tell them Big Snoop Dogg sent you.
Let's face it, most people aren't making massive turkey feasts on the regular. And after 364 days of not thinking about it, it can be hard to get that bird just right. That's where Instacart, the holiday rescue app, comes in. From getting all the ingredients to prep a full seasonal spread to getting last-minute swaps in a turkey emergency, Instacart has everything a holiday host needs to save face and save dinner. And right now, if you download Instacart, you'll get free delivery on your first 3 orders and delivery in as fast as 1 hour. Offer valid for a limited time. $10 minimum per order. Additional terms apply.
It's time. Time to get in the zone. Time to get in the zone with the 49ers web zone. This is the No Huddle Podcast with Al and Brian.
What's up, faithful? You are listening to another episode of the 49ers web zone No Huddle Podcast, a part of the Odyssey Network. I'm Brian Renick. He's Al Sacco. And the 49ers went into the link and absolutely curb stomped the Philadelphia Eagles to the tune of 42-19. It is Victory Monday. More than that, it is our Brockiversary. It is 365 days to the day that Brock Purdy came in against the Dolphins last year and led that team to a victory and then didn't lose again until he literally had his elbow ligament shredded in Philadelphia. Al, that game and then my time on Twitter afterwards was everything that I could have hoped and dreamed of. How was it for you?
It was awesome, man. You know, that first quarter, they get completely dominated. 6 plays, was it -2 yards or whatever it was?
-6 yards.
-6 yards. Yep. And they look like they're getting their asses kicked in the trenches. And you're just like, this can't be happening. And then for the team, the entire team to flip a switch the way that they did, man to man on that team, it seemed like every single guy, as soon as for whatever reason the second quarter hit, it was just all systems go at every single level. Defensive line was all over Jalen Hurts. Linebackers are flying around. Coverage, how many times did Hurts just stand there with nowhere to go with the ball? Offensive line settled in. The skill position players, come on. How are you going to stop those 4 guys? You can't. It was unbelievable. They all contributed. Even Juwan Jennings made plays yesterday. And then Brock Purdy, who I feel like every show I'm gushing about him, but I know we both have a lot to say about him, a 23-year-old who just calm. We had the worst first quarter ever. Okay, I'm calm. Yeah. But they just kicked Fat Dom out, or whatever the hell that guy's name is, Big Dom. And the link is going to whatever it's called now, Fat Dom. And look, I respect fat Italian guys who wear their chains outside of their shirts. I wore my chain outside of my shirt. I grew up very Italian for longer than I want to admit. But Dom, you have no business touching players. So, no. You know, the stadium's going crazy. They kick this guy out, and Purdy just trots out there with the offense business like right down the field. You got to love it from person to person, from player to player, from coach to coach. The Niners came out and just made an absolute statement in Week 13 of the NFL.
Oh, yeah, and there's no other way to put it than they put their stamp on this 2023 season as the team to beat, not just in the NFC, but in the NFL. I will stand on that all 10 toes. I mean, I don't know who else you could point to. And that's the thing is, our big concern going into this game, or at least I know it was mine, and you expressed concerns as well, was obviously that Philadelphia defensive line against the 49ers offensive line. And through the first quarter, I was sick to my stomach. I even tweeted out, I was like, this offensive line is getting embarrassed, and they were. And then, like you said, they just flipped a switch. And I don't know if it was, I think to hold Philadelphia to 2 field goals after they marched down the field twice was quite possibly the biggest turning point in that game. Because if those are touchdowns and this team is down 14-0, I don't know that the game goes the same way. But
100%.
You go into the second quarter and you're like, listen, we're down 6. It's a 1-score game, quite literally. If we score a touchdown and kick an extra point, we take the lead. And I think Brock Purdy just has a calming presence, not only on the offensive side of the ball, but to the team as a whole. But even more importantly than that, I think Brock Purdy has a calming presence to Kyle Shanahan. I think Kyle Shanahan in years past, and again, I say this just as a fan of the team, and I don't bring up old players to shit on them or anything like that. But if Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback in that game doesn't go the way that it does, because I don't believe that Kyle Shanahan had the faith in Jimmy Garoppolo that he displays in Brock Purdy. And let's be perfectly honest, and let's get into it. Kyle Shanahan has every reason to have tons of faith in Brock Purdy, because Brock Purdy is at 23 years old, coming off of a UCL tear that was repaired in the offseason. Brock Purdy is putting together an MVP season. And if you don't think that Brock Purdy is putting together an MVP season, you need to go argue with a wall, because here are the facts, and let's just lay them out, because I know that you've got some things to say to those that continue to kind of throw shade or poo-poo what this kid is doing. But here is the MVP case. Again, you go into Philadelphia against Jalen Hurts, who at that point was the presumed MVP frontrunner. Brock Purdy had 148.8 rating against Philadelphia on Sunday. Jalen Hurts has never had a rating that high in his career, and that was care of John Chapman, friend of the show, 49ers Rush podcast. Not only that, but Brock Purdy, through 12 games, has the highest yards per attempt with a minimum of 300 attempts in NFL history. Brock Purdy currently, after week 13, is averaging 9.59 yards per attempt, which is a full yard more than number 2. That is the best in NFL history through 12 games. Number 2, 2011 Aaron Rodgers, 9.42 yards. Number 3, 2004 Peyton Manning, 9.41 yards. Number 4, 1988 Boomer Esiason, 9.37 yards per attempt. Number 5, 1984 Dan Marino, 9.31 yards per attempt. Al, do you know what those 4 performances have in common?
MVP.
They all won the MVP that season.
MVP.
All of them. Kyle Posey posted this on Twitter earlier today, and I loved it. If your argument against Brock Purdy and the MVP debate is that Purdy pads his stats with yards after the catch, what you need to understand is that this season in 2023, 48.5% of Purdy's passing yards have come after the catch. If you look at the average yak for the last 10 MVP quarterbacks, it's 48%. It's exactly where Brock Purdy is. In fact, Mahomes, who won the MVP last year, 54% of his yards came from after the catch. So again, that's from Kyle Posey of Niners Nation. If your argument is that Purdy is just throwing short passes and the playmakers are doing everything else, goes out the window. That is not true at all. Purdy currently leads the NFL in the following quarterback metrics. Passer rating, 116.1. Number 2 is Dak at 108.3. Yards per attempt, which we just talked about, 9.6. Number 2 is Tua at 8.6. Yards per pass completion, 13.7. Number 2 is Stroud at 13.4. The top 4 are Purdy, Stroud, Tua, and Stafford. What do all those guys have in common? They run some version of the Shanahan system. That's pretty awesome. Adjusted yards per attempt, which is a metric that measures the average yardage of a QB's passing attempts while also accounting for touchdowns and interceptions. So it places weight, positive and negative, on those plays. So average yards or adjusted yards per attempt is kind of a more impactful metric than yards per attempt, which we just said he leads at 9.6. He's at 10.17. Number 2 is CJ Stroud at 8.89. Net yards per attempt, he leads at 8.6. Number 2 is Tua at 8.03. Adjusted net yards per attempt, which is the same thing as air yards per attempt, except for it also takes into account sacks. He leads at 9.14. Number 2 is Tua at 8.11. His completion percentage, he leads the NFL at 70.2. Number 2 are Dak and Tua. They're tied at 70.1. So again, not a commanding lead, but still leading. Touchdown percentage, he's at 6.9. Dak is number 2 at 6.3. And QBR, Dak and Purdy are both tied at 1 at 75.6. Stop with this nonsense that Brock Purdy is not and should not be a legitimate MVP candidate, because that has nothing to do with reality.
No, I saw today that the MVP odds are now Purdy, Prescott, and Hurts are all plus 350. Like, they're the leaders. And if you just covered up his name and you read what you read to anybody who's rational, be like, hell yeah, that guy's in the MVP conversation. And I got pissed off last night because I think most people who understand what they're looking at respect Purdy and are giving him credit. You know, your Kurt Warners of the world, the guys who played the game, the guys who know what they're doing. But I saw a tweet, and I don't know what he meant by it. I don't know a lot about him. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but it was that Ben Solak guy, who's one of those ringer guys who seem like they, you know, it's sort of, there's that group of people coming up who kind of feel like they think they're the smartest guy in the room, even though they never probably played football ever, or certainly not in the NFL. But he said after the game, there's going to be Brock Purdy discourse for MVP, or it just came across really snarky. Be prepared, something like that. And I'm just thinking to myself, all right, Brock Purdy yesterday, he is 23 years old, second-year quarterback who just had a disaster of a first quarter on the road, started 0 for 4 with 0 yards after 1 quarter. On the other side of the ball, Philly's going up and down the field. The Niners defense, though, like you mentioned, to their credit, they kept them at 6-0. They kept them in the game. But still, you're on the road. It's a huge game. Everything is going wrong. And I know he's got a great team around him. I know he has great players around him. So did Joe Montana. So did Peyton Manning. So did Tom Brady. These guys have great players around them. But for any QB in that situation, any quarterback, especially a young one, to be unfazed, to not get rattled, to bounce back like nothing happened, some guys have it. Most don't, Brian. Most guys don't have that in them. We see it week in and week out, game in and game out. He does. He responds after that first quarter. He goes 19 for 23 with 314 yards and 4 touchdowns, scoring 30-plus points for the 13th time in 18 games.
Yep.
I mean, what else do you want? So now, and I apologize if I already mentioned the stat because you gave a bunch of really good ones. He has 3+ TDs and 140 rating in 4 games this season. Brady and Rodgers are the only 2 QBs to do so in a season, and he's only the only QB with 5 such games in his first 2 seasons. Kurt Warner has 3. He has, in the top 8 passer rating games this year, Purdy's got 4 of them. He got 4 of them. It's insane. And to think that there are a large number of people who don't want to recognize that. And I think some just have a take and they just want to stick with it for attention. This is what I said 2 months ago, so I'm going to keep saying it. I said he wasn't it when he had that rough stretch, so I'm just going to keep saying it. But I think there's that group of people, and this really pisses me off just in terms of how we look at football now. Some of these guys who have big voices, you know, on the Ringer or whatever else, guys like Steven Ruiz, who ranks Brock Purdy the 20th best quarterback. Why? How do you even rationalize that? Because he has good players around him. because you watched a film and you were like, oh, he could have thrown that ball a little harder. Like, I don't understand what they're even looking at. Yeah. So the tweet from Solak pissed me off because for me, it was like, all right, even if you don't think he's MVP for whatever nerd metrics you look at, even if you don't think that, how do you not look at that game and be like, wow, credit to that dude. This isn't a 33-year-old veteran. He is 23 years old. He is a second-year quarterback. Second-year quarterbacks don't do this. They don't do it. What's happening is an amazing story. He leads the league in QBR. He leads the league in yards per attempt, rating, completions. He has 23 touchdown passes. He's on pace for 4,500 yards. He only has 6 interceptions. How the hell is that not in the MVP conversation? Why is that weird? Why are you ready for that discourse? Those are MVP numbers. Just give him credit where credit is deserved. He wasn't supposed to happen. This guy was not supposed to happen. This is one of the best QB stories in the history of the game. Why not just say, wow, man, this guy deserves so much credit for what he's doing instead of being snarky and being like, oh, he's not the MVP. He's not Justin Herbert. I mean, the nerds love Justin Herbert.
They do.
Justin Herbert is hypothetically the best quarterback of all time. That Stephen Ruiz guy ranks him 3rd. Why? Mm-hmm. What has Justin Herbert done to be ranked the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL? Because he looks good doing it? Because he looks good overthrowing people? Because he looks good throwing into double coverage? And I'm not saying, look, Herbert's really good. I'm not saying he's not, but he has had a very mediocre sort of results in his career. And I've watched him play a ton of games this year, and he doesn't always play super well. He's had some amazing games and some games where he's stunk. But he can do no wrong in some people's eyes because he's physically talented. I don't care how physically talented you are. I care about results on the field. Like this past week, if you watched any of Herbert play, he struggled in the rain against the 2-9 Patriots team. So the people will be like, oh, well, it was in the rain. Okay. Like when Brock Purdy struggled in the rain against one of the best Ds in the league at home in Cleveland. Cleveland's D at home is outstanding. But Purdy is suspect for some reason for doing that. And they'll say, but Al, did you see Quentin Johnson drop that pass? Yeah. Did you see Brandon Ayuk, who's phenomenal? I love Brandon Ayuk. Drop his passes in Cleveland? Because it happens in the rain. People drop passes. Quarterbacks have to adjust. It happens. And then they say, well, Al, what if Justin Herbert was in Kyle Shanahan's offense? Oh, I don't know. Would he lead the league in QB rating, in yards per attempt, in completion percentage? Would the 49ers score 30 points every week? I guess my point, Brian, like they're both really good quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
But every excuse in the book is made for Herbert because he looks good physically, while Purdy literally has to fucking levitate, spin around, and throw a 40-yard bomb off his back foot to get any credit from these people whatsoever. What about throwing with anticipation? What about moxie? What about intangibles? What about leadership? What about being calm and overcoming adversities? When you play quarterback, you have about 2.5 seconds to decide what you're going to do while 4 or 5 300-pound men come and try to kill you. That is quarterback in the NFL. You don't sit there at your computer and have 5 minutes to look at a route in an all-22 when you never played in the NFL. You never saw that speed. Saying, oh, well, after I've been looking at this for 3 minutes, if he just turns his head to the left, you'll see that this guy's running a drag. Terrible decision. I'm going to knock him for that. He had 2.5 seconds to figure out what he was going to do. You did not play the position at this level. Like, give me a break. Results matter. And I'm just tired of reading the shit from these people who I will literally see Kurt Warner post something. Kurt Warner, who's a Hall of Fame quarterback, who played in the NFL at a very, very high level. And people are arguing with him. Because why? Because you're sitting at your computer at home and looking at something. You have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And some of these people get paid good money and have a voice. And I guess we have a voice too. And we're using it right now because it's bullshit. Enough. The guy's been fantastic. It's a great story. I'm so sick of the nitpicking. I'm so sick of we got to watch the film and compare him to Justin Herbert and all this other stuff. Like, give me a break. Yeah, he's not as physically gifted as Justin Herbert. Joe Montana was not as physically gifted as Dan Marino arm-wise. He was not as physically gifted as a Randall Cunningham. You know what I mean? Like, but he was perfect for the system he ran in. He had moxie, he had intangibles, he was clutch, he had all those things. Made him arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. So I'm just tired of it. It pissed me off. That's my little rant for today.
Yeah.
I just had to get it out of my chest, man.
Yeah. And like the discourse around this idea where it's like, Well, we can't give Purdy credit because he plays for Kyle Shanahan and he has Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and, and it's like, I get that. I understand that. Who did Patrick Mahomes have when he won MVP, right? Last year, kudos to him, right? Because he did not have the weapons that he normally did. But when he won it before, who did he have? He had Tyreek Hill. He had Travis Kelce, right? He had, he had Andy Reid, right?
Yeah.
Joe Montana had Bill Walsh, but he also had Roger Craig and Jerry Rice and
John Taylor and Brent
John
Jones
Taylor and Brent, right? Like, we don't discredit those guys for the weapons that they have and the coaches that they have. Why are we doing that for Brock Purdy? Is it because he was the last pick in the draft and we look like dumbasses because nobody could have predicted that he would succeed at this level in the NFL? And that's really, to me, all it is, because even Philly fans, right? If Philly fans want to argue for Jalen Hurts, that's fine. And if the Philly fans' argument is, well, Brock Purdy has all the weapons, you know what your argument is? Your argument is that the 49ers have better weapons than the Eagles. You are admitting that. You are admitting that your team is not as talented. Is that really the route that you want to go? Are we? And then you look at it and you say, all right, so who are the three leaders right now for MVP? It's Brock Purdy, it's Dak Prescott, and it's Jalen Hurts. Have they all played each other? Yes, they have. What has happened? Brock Purdy's team has kicked the absolute shit out of those two guys' teams both times, 42-10 and 42-19. So again, what are we arguing here? That's what it just doesn't make any sense. And ultimately, I honestly, genuinely believe that it comes down to the idea that a 7th round, last pick of the draft quarterback shouldn't be able to do these things. And because he is, that makes everybody else look like a dumbass, and they can't handle that. And it's like, eventually that status is going to go away like it did for Tom Brady, especially if he continues to play the way that he's played. And you cannot tell me on December 4th, 2023, that Brock Purdy has no business being in the MVP conversation, because he absolutely does. Unequivocally, based on how he's played, the numbers that he's put up, and what this team looks like with him versus what it looked like with the other guys that have been in this system with those same players, including Christian McCaffrey. It didn't look like this with Jimmy Garoppolo when Christian McCaffrey came. It didn't. So miss me with any other excuse, argument, whatever. Go argue with a wall. Brock Purdy is firmly entrenched in the MVP discussion. Point blank, period. Let's move on.
The first ever NBA in-season tournament is heating up, and teams are ready to take it to the next level.
The stakes are the highest.
Group play was a battle, and now we're set for one and done, single elimination.
It's win or go home.
The first ever NBA Cup is at stake. History is calling.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
This is NBA basketball at its highest level.
Time to find out who's ready to answer. Don't miss the NBA in-season tournament knockout rounds, Monday and Tuesday on TNT.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Whether you love true crime or comedy, celebrity interviews or news, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue. And guess what? Now you can call them on your auto insurance too, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. It works just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show you coverage options that fit your budget. Get your quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Make this holiday season one you'll remember forever with an engagement ring from JamesAllen.com. James Allen knows each love story is unique. That's why they make it easy to custom design engagement rings at up to half the price of a traditional jeweler. Choose from tons of conflict-free diamonds, both earth-created and lab-created. Then pick your ring setting and metal. Make your holiday engagement truly magical. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com code podcast.
And what I wanted to move on to is a little bit more of just an idea of how good this 49ers team has been this season. Aaron Schatz, who developed the DVOA metric, tweeted this out this morning. Through 12 games, again, just like the yards per attempt metric that we were looking at, through 12 games, this 49ers team has the 8th highest overall DVA mark since 1981. They trail only the 2007 New England Patriots, who were number one. Their overall DVA was 59.9%. It's absurd. It's absurd, right? And again, DVOA is an advanced metric analytic, right? It measures efficiency. It measures all of that. And it takes into account, overall DVA takes into account DVOA for offense, defense, and special teams. Number one, New England, 12-0 after 12 games, 59.9% DVOA. Number two is the 1985 Chicago Bears. Number three is the 1998 Denver Broncos. Number four is the 1991 Washington Redskins at the time. 1995 Dallas Cowboys. 6, 2018 Kansas City Chiefs. 7, 2004 Philadelphia Eagles. And then 8 is the 2023 San Francisco 49ers at 42.9%. Of those teams above them, all of them won the Super Bowl except for that 2007 New England Patriots team, and then the 2018 Chiefs and the 2004 Eagles. Both those teams, the Patriots lost in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs lost that year in the conference championship game, and the 2004 Eagles lost in the Super Bowl. I can't remember who they played, but yeah. So again, 8th highest since 1981. Pretty impressive. The other thing that I thought was really impressive, when the 49ers have Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel start and finish a game, they're undefeated this season. They're 8-0. Mm-hmm. They are averaging 37.6 points per game. They've scored 301 points in the 8 games that Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel have started and finished. And they've given up 117 points for 14.6 points per game. They are beating their opponents by an average of 23 points. And their point differential is plus 184. And if the season ended today, the 2023 49ers would have the highest success rate of any offense in the last 10 years. Success rate is a metric that adds a layer of context to any given play by taking into account the down and distance to go. So success rate is calculated in this manner. A play is successful for an offense when it gains at least 40% of yards to go on first down, 60% of yards to go on second down, and 100% of yards to go on third or fourth down. And so your success rate is the number of successful plays divided by the number of plays total. The 49ers have a 53.5 success rate.
Wow.
Passing is 54.6, rushing is 52.5. Over half of their plays are gaining either 60% of what you need on first down, 40% of what you need on first down, 60% of what you need on second down, or 100% of what you need on third or fourth down. This team is incredible. And that doesn't even take into account defensive success rate, which they are pretty high as well. And then the last one that I thought was incredible is the 49ers have played the Cowboys, Jaguars, and Eagles. Cowboys are 9-3. Jaguars are 8-3. Eagles are 10-2. They have beaten those 3 teams by a combined score of 118-32. Just
it's insane. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. And yesterday, Sunday, I should say, to me, I thought the Eagles were up there with talent for them. Now, Eagles do have some weak spots, linebacker, secondary, but Eagles are a really talented football team. So I thought this was going to be a really, really big test for them, going on the road against a team that's that good in the trenches. Thought they were going to win the game, but I didn't think it was going to be like that. didn't think it was going to be a complete ass kicking. And like you just mentioned, the teams that they play, who are all going to be in the playoffs, who are all probably going to make deep runs in the playoffs, they're absolutely destroying them right now. And it's hard not to look at the 49ers and think this team is just kind of destined this year. I don't know what the hell happened in that 3-game stretch. I don't know if it was the injuries. I don't know if it was just
at this point, you have to think it was, right? You have to think
maybe
it was missing Debo and Trent.
And just maybe you get into a slump. Things happen, right? The Cleveland game was fluky in the rain. They should have won anyway if Moody hits that kick. Kirk Cousins played out of his mind in the game they lost to the Vikings, and still they had a chance there at the end. And Cincinnati is also ridiculously talented, and the Niners weren't playing well at the time. They were injured, and Burrow is one of the best QBs in the league when he's healthy. That happened. But what we've seen since then and before then, it's just utter dominance. And you look at the weapons they have, and I thought yesterday was awesome because Debo has talked a lot of shit, right? He hasn't backed off it. He's talked a lot of shit. He's continually talked shit. He doesn't care. He showed up yesterday. That was 2021 Debo Samuel yesterday. 4 catches for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then 3 carries for 22 yards and a score. And he just looked like he was shot out of a cannon on some of those plays. Actually, all 3 of the touchdowns, he looked like he was shot out of a cannon. He came out with something to prove. When he plays like that, and you mix in George Kittle, 4 for 68, Brandon Ayuk, 5 for 46, and a touchdown for Ayuk. And then you throw in Christian McCaffrey, who, again, didn't have a yard after a quarter and ends up with 93 yards rushing and a touchdown and another 40 yards receiving to boot. They're just they can beat you in so many ways. They're so talented. Good luck. I don't care how good your defense is. Good luck when they have it all going. And you have Brock pulling the trigger, Brock behind there making good decisions, throwing the ball to these guys. It's just insane. If that offensive line holds up and can play the way that they did from the second quarter on yesterday, the Niners are impossible to stop. And then you mentioned on the defensive side of the ball, again, the first couple drives, I'm like, what are we doing? Too much time getting beat up front. And they made an adjustment, man. And again, it's the type of thing there too. The defensive line just has so much freaking talent. And then you're talking about Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw behind them. And now all of a sudden, inserting Ambry Thomas into the lineup has completely changed the secondary. Now you have Lenore inside, Charvarius Ward, who made some really nice plays yesterday. And the safety group too, you know what? Now I haven't watched gone back and really watched the defense closely. Like I haven't looked at all 22, but Jair Brown is coming in there and they're not missing a beat. Right. Yeah. So all credits due. Again, I'd have to look and see exactly what he did or go back but they're not missing a beat. Clearly the secondary looks good. And from what I tell on my television, when Hurts is going back there and just staring at things, nobody's open. Nobody's open. So they just did a hell of a job. And this team is all coming together at the right time. This is, the next, we've got 5 games left now. This is where you want your team to play well. This is when you want to look like this. If you want to have a slump in October, great, whatever, let it happen. Because now they look phenomenal. Now they look like the team to beat, not just in the NFC, in the NFL. This looks like the best team in the NFL right now. When all things are clicking, I'm not trying to be a homer. Anybody who knows me knows I'm not afraid to knock the team or say when I'm worried or anything like that. But when everything's clicking right now, I do not see a team in the league that can beat them.
No. And, the thing about this game is they went into Philly and curb stomped them. This wasn't at home, right? And as it stands right now, we said it in the preview, nothing changes with a 49ers victory. They are still the 2nd seed in the NFC. The Eagles are still the 1st seed. But this is a psychological advantage in a big way for this team, because even if they have to go to Philly, they can go there knowing, look, it's not a big deal. We kicked the shit out of them the last time we went to Philly. What do we have to be worried about? And, I think I want to, obviously Kyle Shanahan and the offense deserve their flowers. They put up 42 on an Eagles defense, but let's be honest, that Eagles defense, like I said in the preview, is the definition of mid right now. They are ranked 17th in DVOA. They haven't been as good as they were last year. The entire Eagles team isn't as good as they were last year, but that Eagles offense is largely the same. Or you could say it's better with their upgrade of DeAndre Swift, and they couldn't run the ball to save their lives.
No.
Jalen Hurts threw 48 times in this game. And what I want to do is I want to give my flowers to Steve Wilks, because The first two possessions that the Eagles had, obviously they marched down the field, but they tightened it up in the red zone. They held them to 2 field goals, and I think that made all the difference in the game. And then the 49ers on their third drive marched down the field, score a touchdown. All of a sudden, not only did they even it up, they took the lead 7-6, right? So, hey, by the way, Brock Purdy, comeback victory, right? Down 6-0, came back, pulled out the dub, 42-19.
Yep.
But one of the things that I thought was awesome to see is I genuinely believe that this is likely the best 49ers defensive performance against a mobile quarterback that I have seen since Kyle Shanahan has arrived in San Francisco.
That's a great point.
I attribute that to Steve Wilks and the game plan he put together. Because if you go back and you watch that game, you will see Jalen Hurts unmolested in the pocket. But what he isn't doing is breaking the pocket, because the 49ers defensive ends maintained their edge and did not allow escape routes for Hurts. Did they get Hurts down? A handful of times. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, they didn't let him get out of the pocket, and they forced Jalen Hurts to play quarterback, and he was not able to do so. Not only that, but Steve Wilks also had the balls to go man-to-man, and not only did he go man-to-man, but those 49ers outside corners were on. They were on the Eagles receivers. They were pressing at the line of scrimmage. They were not giving them cushion, and it made all the difference in the world, because when you see Hurts just standing there 3-4 seconds without throwing the ball, it's because he has nowhere to go. And so kudos to Steve Wilks for putting together that game plan, or the entire 49ers coaching staff, if you will. I'm sure they all had a hand in it. But this was by far and away the best performance against a running quarterback that I've seen from this defense. And it gives me a lot of hope for that Christmas game against the Ravens, that they might be able to not get murdered by Lamar Jackson's legs.
Time now for the Nissan Thrilling Play of the Week, and thanks to Nissan as a sponsor. San Francisco's star quarterback threw for 314 yards and 4 touchdowns, 3 of those to his star wide receiver, while Philadelphia's quarterback was checked for a concussion in their 42-19 loss at home on Sunday night. The fiery NFC Championship game rematch also featured 6 straight possessions in which San Francisco was able to score. They are now 9-3 on the season, while Philadelphia is 10-2. Philadelphia was a little bit scared as their quarterback jogged off the field in the fourth quarter and went straight to the locker room. He was cleared to play and return to action with about 10 minutes left. But by the time he got back, San Francisco was up 35-13. The last 4 games, Philadelphia has been able to come back from behind and win, but not today. San Francisco is 33-1 when leading by 8+ points under their head coach. Thanks to Nissan for presenting us with our weekly thrilling play. And remember, for endless thrills like more fun, more action, more guts, Nissan has the vehicle for you. From sports cars, sedans, and EVs to pickups and crossovers, at Nissan, more is all they do.
Nobody wants a surprise in their jelly donut. It's toothpaste? That's because the middle is the most important part. At Graybar, we're at the middle of electrical and datacom jobs across the country, connecting installers, facility managers, and business owners with smart solutions for their most challenging projects, which means stocking and delivering crucial products on time and on budget with no surprises, thanks to our nationwide logistics network. Yep, Graybar does that.
Now, Elliott Shore Parks, we had on the show last week, and I think he pissed a lot of our listeners off.
He certainly did.
Yeah, they weren't too happy with his tone, I guess, with some of the things that he said. But he tweeted after the game, or whenever after the game ended, the thing I keep coming back to with this loss is the Eagles didn't play that bad or different than they normally do. They didn't turn it over 4 times. They didn't miss wide open receivers. They didn't drop passes. They just got straight up beat badly. And that's coming from somebody who all of you said is a huge Eagles homer. He's admitting right there. They just got their asses handed to them. Pro Football Focus credited the 49ers with 46 pressures. That is insane. I don't know how you can even come up with that number. That is insane. I know there were times where
that's 48 dropbacks. So 46 pressures
nuts.
on 48 dropbacks.
And they certainly weren't pressuring him that much in the first quarter. So after that, holy shit. And I know a lot of it Hurts held the ball. I get that. But still, like you said, the Niners were covering and they were eventually getting to him. It was just an unbelievable ass kicking. I saw a stat too from Elias Sports. The 23-point road win in Philadelphia is the largest victory margin since the 1970 merger against a team with the outright best record in the NFL, at least 10 games into the season.
Outstanding.
It's just absolutely insane what they did.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's I mean, you can keep looking at all these different stats, all these different numbers, whether it's for individual players, whether it's for the team, and it's just the same thing over and over again. That it's just it's so damn impressive what they're doing. They have to keep it up, but right now, like I said, I don't see any team right now that can hang with the Niners if they're playing the way that they have lately. And I wanted to give a shout out to Christian McCaffrey too, because I saw a quote and I hadn't seen this, but Kyle Shanahan, I don't know when he said it. He said basically Christian McCaffrey is a walk-on player in an all-pros body, meaning his work ethic is like of somebody who doesn't have a spot, just has to earn everything. And Peter King, who is going to be on our show tomorrow.
Yeah, he is.
Really excited about that. Had something in his column today that Sunday was his 25th game in the Niners. He's given the Niners 2,920 total yards and 30 touchdowns. Just been absolutely all pro level stuff. Again, just another person, when you look at it, like his stats are just insane. His stats are insane. Purdy's stats are insane. This defense is coming together insane. It's a different receiver every week. It's a Kittle game, or it's an Ayuk game, or it's a Debo game. Just pick your poison with the squad right now. And it feels good for all the worrying we did about a month ago. And it was warranted because there were some issues. This team has come back after the bye. They looked themselves in the mirror and have just put themselves to the elite of the elite in the league.
And we talked about what this team looks like with Trent Williams and Debo on the field and what it looks like without, and again, I talked about what, how many points they've scored again in the 8 games that they've had, both from start to finish. The lowest point total is 27, right? So they've scored 30 or more in every game that those two have played, except for one. And that one game was 27, which is nothing to sneeze at in the NFL. And it just goes to show, like, neither one of those guys would ever win an MVP unless Debo put up insane numbers he would have to be putting up Tyreek Hill numbers, who is probably, along with Christian McCaffrey, the only 2 non-quarterbacks that should even be mentioned in MVP conversations. And you could argue that maybe they should be mentioned higher than any quarterback this year, just based on what the quarterback play has looked like. Although, again, that's no shade to Brock Purdy, who, again, I think is a legitimate MVP candidate. But what's wild is if Purdy wins the MVP, Christian McCaffrey could end up without any award, because if Purdy wins the MVP, I would assume Tyreek Hill would win Offensive Player of the Year, and rightfully so. If you look at what Tyreek Hill is doing in Miami, it's unreal. It's unreal. He's likely going to put up the first 2,000-yard season in NFL history for a wide receiver. He needs 500 and change, and he has 5 games left to do it. So, barring injury, I would assume he will, and then he'll just continue to add touchdowns. But again, you look at Christian McCaffrey, and the Eagles made it a point on their defensive game plan that Christian McCaffrey wasn't going to beat them. And the amount of gravity they gave to Christian McCaffrey allowed a lot of what we saw in the middle of the field with Juwan Jennings, with Debo Samuel, with guys like that. In fact, that third down catch that Jennings made, the only reason he was open is because the middle defender, the robber in a cover 1, his role was to double Christian McCaffrey. And the minute that he went to Christian McCaffrey is when Purdy went to Jennings. And, congratulations to Juwan Jennings, who left Philadelphia with a son by the name of Eli Ricks after that touchdown, where he just threw him onto the sideline and said, "Get the hell out of my way. I'm scoring a touchdown here." And that's the thing is, like, you look at the guys that they have, and one of the things that I loved is Trent Williams. Trent Williams was asked about Deebo Samuel, and essentially what he said, or no, it was either Nick Bosa or Trent Williams. I can't remember who. One of the two was asked about Deebo Samuel, and essentially they were like, Deebo Samuel is the definition of unselfish, right? Like, he's a guy that got paid, and when you get paid, you want to prove that you were worth what you got paid. And yet he doesn't complain. He does what is asked of him. And then when the lights are the brightest, Deebo Samuel says, "Get on my back. I will carry us." And that's what he did yesterday. He stood on business, all 10 toes, and said, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. And we beat your ass 42-19. And if we had Brock in the championship game, the results likely would have been very similar." So kudos to the team for talking that shit and not only backing it up, but just unequivocally showing that team in Philadelphia is not in the same class as San Francisco when healthy. And that's not shade. That's just being realistic, if we're being perfectly honest.
Yeah, and you look at the production they put up on offense, and I guess I didn't realize this. The defense has only given up, or the team has only given up more than 19 points in 3 games this season. They've had 8 games with 19 points or less. I mean, how are you going to beat a team that scores 30 every game when you can't break 20 against them? The Vikings, for as well as they moved the ball, only scored 22. The Rams scored 23 in that Cincinnati game, which was a train wreck. They got 31. But again, those happen over the course of the season. But you're just looking at a team that, again, is firing on all cylinders on both sides of the ball. A lot of credit to, and I'm going to ask Peter King about this tomorrow, so I don't want to get too into it today. But what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have done to get this roster where it is, to get this coaching staff where it is, that there's 3 head coaches right now coaching league around the staff. There's front office guys who are running teams elsewhere. They've just built this factory of just production and just eliteness. That's even a word at every level, at the front office, the coaching staff. Yeah, they've made their mistakes. The Trey Lance trade was a huge blunder, but when you're so good at everything else, you can almost, they brushed it under the rug. They traded 3 first-round picks, or whatever you want to call it, multiple first-round picks, to move up to number 3 to draft a QB of the future, got rid of him within 3 years, and it got brushed under the rug. No other team can do that. That's how good they've been in every other facet, where they could say, like, yeah, we made this probably one of the worst trades in the history of the NFL, and it doesn't matter because we're still going out and kicking everybody's ass. Right now, it doesn't matter. And if Brock is your quarterback and it looks that way, it doesn't matter. It's insane. So a lot of credit to them, and I wanted to ask Peter that tomorrow a little bit to talk, because I know he'd spend time around them. Want to hear what he thinks
100%.
there.
Yeah, and not only are they able to brush it under the rug, but they're able to brush it under the rug because they drafted a guy better than him, right? It's not like the Jets where they could sweep Zach Wilson under the rug because they went and got Aaron Rodgers, right? No, they drafted another guy with the last pick in the draft, saw something in him that they liked, and the rest has been, magical history. But this,
you think Salah's going to get fired?
I do. I genuinely do. And earlier in the season, I was like, sweet, right? Like, Bobby Sal's come back home. But I really have been impressed with what Steve Wilkes has done with this defense. And I don't know, I would imagine that I don't know that Kyle Shanahan would blow it up again just because Saleh is available. I would imagine Saleh would probably find a defensive coordinator position somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or if he doesn't want to do that, he could come back to the 49ers, be their linebackers coach or whatever, and then, take over for whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like I said, after this Eagles game, I'm fully on the Steve Wilkes is doing a great job bandwagon, because like I said,
he deserves this.
Yeah.
He's changed the narrative.
Yeah, for sure. And we joked about it, but it seems to have made all the difference in the world for him to be down on the sideline. And I don't know how to equate that. I don't know. I don't know that there's a tangible reason why, but it's evident. It's evident that it is going better. The one thing that I thought was interesting, yesterday was I don't feel like I saw Chase Young as much as I anticipated I would. And I tweeted out about it. And, there were people that were replying saying, and I think most of them were Commanders fans saying his knee is not, his knee is still not right. And maybe that is the case. I don't know. And that scares me a little bit in terms of, is this team going to try and re-sign him or extend him or whatever? But, that's an off-season situation. But I legitimately, there's nothing I can point to this game that was a negative outside of the Dre Greenlaw situation. And honestly, two things. One, Fat Dom, as you called him, and I will continue to call him. Fat Dom has no business being
Big Dom. I don't know.
They call him Big Dom, but Fat Dom I like better but he has no business, A, being in the paint, right? No business being there. Or two, putting his hands on a player. No business. And I genuinely think the NFL is going to come down either on him or the Eagles or both. And we saw already this season a team photographer for the Dolphins who gave Tyreek Hill his cell phone for Tyreek Hill to do a touchdown celebration. He had his sideline credentials revoked for the rest of the season. I don't see any reason why Fat Dom should not have the same punishment. But two, I don't think there was anything wrong with the tackle that Dre Greenlaw made. I don't understand why that tackle was flagged in the first place. If you watch, right, if you elevate a player and slam him down, that's a penalty. But if you watch that, he has him around the waist and he rolls over and Smith's foot, his left foot, stays on the ground the whole time. It never leaves the ground. So not only should that not have been a penalty for the tackle, but there should have been some conversation about this dude initiated with our player. I mean, Kyle Shanahan was incensed, absolutely incensed.
He should have been
during the game and after the game. He's like, I don't understand why a non-coach or is putting their hands on a player. Never should have happened. Dre Greenlaw, you got a reputation though. And you got to understand that, right? You are the Draymond Green. You are the Draymond Green of the San Francisco 49ers. You've got a reputation. You got to figure out a way to kind of keep it cool. But I understand, and I appreciate it. Azeez Al-Shaair tweeted out during the game, if a non-coach put his hands on me, I would have reacted the same way. So I appreciated Azeez backing up his guy because, again, that never, ever, ever should have happened. But to me, that's the only negative from this game. I don't think you can take any other negative away outside of apparently Ross Dwelley has a high ankle sprain. He'll be out a few weeks. And Burford is still dealing with a bit of an injury. And so is Eric Armstead. I don't know that it'll keep Armstead out or Burford out, but those are the only negatives to take away. I said that I thought it would be a close game. I didn't think it would be a blowout, but if it was a blowout, I thought it was far more likely that the 49ers would blow out the Eagles than the other way around. And I felt pretty vindicated.
Yeah, it was awesome. All right. So tomorrow we're going to have Peter King on. Really excited. We're going to ask him, about the Niners, about the NFC. It's going to be a fun interview. We're looking forward to talking to him. Until then, for Brian, I'm Al.
Later.
Niners on three. 1, 2, 3. Niners!
2400 Sports is an Odyssey company.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the end of the year edition of the Hey, Did You Know podcast. So year end means holidays. Hey, did you know Americans eat 1.4 billion pounds of turkey every Thanksgiving?
Well, year end also means the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Hey, did you know it's the best deals of the season on Hyundai's most popular vehicles?
Well, Isn't that interesting? And since we were talking turkey, hey, did you know only male turkeys gobble?
Hey, did you know every new Hyundai comes with America's Best warranty and 3 years or 36,000 miles of complimentary maintenance?
Hey, did you know the Statue of Liberty is the largest holiday gift ever given?
Hey, did you know when the year ends, so do the deals?
December 30th is National Bacon Day, you know.
It's your journey. Own every mile at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Get 0% APR for 60 months, plus 0 payments for 90 days, or $2,500 bonus cash on the Hyundai Tucson. Now, during the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Offer ends January 2nd. Call 562-314-4603 for details.